The following is a production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. Kick off your work boots and pull up a boulder. It's time for Man Cave, discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. Grab your favorite beverage, pick out a comfy spot around the campfire, and enjoy today's conversation with our two favorite cavemen, Pat King and Brian Howe.
Welcome to Pat King's Man Cave. I'm Pat King. This is my radio show, podcast / effort to bring men's ministry to more in depth from my radio show, which I have on Salt and Light Radio every Wednesday morning at 7:25 a.m. Eddie Trask and I co-host that, and it's 15 minutes. And I started this podcast, as a way to take what Eddie and I have talked about on the radio show and bring it to more depth on some subject matters. I have testimonials, interviews, and then we'll go into some men's subjects as well on other issues, and bring in, like, Eddie from time to time will co-host with me, or Dave Fortin from my friend in Connecticut, another brother Knight. And this is all an effort to work on men's ministries on a one-on-one level at a leisurely time where you can take and listen or watch this whenever you want. This is a production of Salt and Light Radio, but it's on their YouTube channel, so you'll get that information at the end of the show. With me today, I've got a good friend that I've really actually just gotten to know over the last couple of weeks, Ken Reef. He's our state Knights of Columbus advocate, right? That's your correct job. So Ken is retired. He's been a Grand Knight. He's been a Knights for 15 years, 18 years.
Yeah.
And he has, we've kind of come to this bond that the only way the Knights are really strong is if they're strong in their faith, if they have real kinship with other men to make you better. I know that I could not be the man I am if I didn't seek out other men that are better than me. Okay? Because iron sharpens iron, and that's no more different than in the workplace or in the church. But I tell you what, the best place to get sharpened is by other men of faith. And Ken here is a man of faith. He's on fire. He's retired, but he's more on fire for doing something that God's calling him to do with the Knights of Columbus, and with he's going to start a radio show on Salt and Light on Fridays, and to promote the Knights of Columbus, to help educate other men, kind of doing what I'm doing, but more directed as a Knights concept versus me. I'm just trying to do things overall with men's ministry, but I am a Knight. I'm a Knight Columbus. I volunteer at my council, 3086 in Caldwell. I'm a worker bee. I like doing the cooking and the presenting of meals and bringing people together for breakfast and fish fries. So I'm that guy. I don't mind running the kitchen, but I do it to feed others. And you can either feed them physically or spiritually, and I like doing both. So, Ken, give it a little brief history, just a little bit, because we're going to actually do a little testimonial about him later. But he's a brother Knight. He's not originally from Idaho. We won't tell where. He'll say where he's from. But Ken, let me know where are you from? What got you started into the Knights, and how'd you end up in Idaho, real briefly?
Well, first of all, I'm what many of us call a refugee from Cali. And thank God I'm here with you folks. I started the Knights in my early 50s, but I really got involved in it in a better way as I was nearing retirement. I found that I had the time to commit and the time to get to know the organization better. It is a lot easier to learn the organization today because of the communications and the video, internet, and the videos than it was before. So I got involved. I became a deputy Grand Knight within my first year, and then a Grand Knight, and then a district deputy, and then a regular guy for a while, and then a Grand Knight again, and then a district deputy.
So you make it sound like it's some secret order or something like that, and that it has these hierarchical, bossy type things. Why all these positions? What's the importance of that?
Well, the group here in Idaho, for example, is 5,000 Knights. And with a group that size, you need some organizational structure. We have different initiatives that we want to pass on, and I can help do that. There are certain issues that come up for the Knights of Columbus that, let's just say, need to be handled sensitively. That's my job as the advocate, to really represent the Knights, communicate out there, and at the same time, should any bumps come in there, to help resolve them.
Okay, so you mentioned 5,000 Knights. Is that all under one group? I mean, so that's just the overall state number. So, but we work on a much smaller level. Each parish has,
right,
for the most part, not every parish in Idaho has a council, but most of them do.
I would say we have 40 councils right here that are active. Then we have what's called roundtables, which are groups of men that are actually too small at this current time to form a council, but they're hosted by a council, so they report to the council. That host council goes and actually trains them on how to become a council and how to do things and assist them back and forth. You know, this is men helping men, and so this is just one example right there. That's really what the organizational structure is. Right. We take the councils, and for ease of management, we put 3 or 4 of them together into what we call a district, overseen by a district deputy, and he is the mentor to the council leaders. Right. And we as state officers, like myself, we mentor the district deputies.
But now, do all councils follow lockstep with the state or with the nationwide, or they more set their own path?
Yes and no. There's
I like those answers. That's really good.
There are certain things that a council has to do.
Okay.
For example, we exist with our dues. We exist by.
Now they're arduous. They're big dues. You got to pay a lot of money.
They're just. I think my dues
barely covers the magazine.
Yeah, my dues out in Meridian are $25.
Yeah, mine's 20.
Yeah, not real big stuff.
We're in Caldwell, so we don't have a lot, so it's only $20 there.
Yeah.
And that's only annual, too.
That's an annual dues. Whatever other money you pay is assessed to you by your local leadership. If they feel that there's something that they want to do, they might raise the dues a little for you. By the way, all this dues, some goes to our headquarters group called Supreme. The other money goes to a little bit to the state, but the majority stays locally. So it's important you understand that we try to keep as much information and pertinent things that to the local area. So that's what we're trying to do always. You've got a community out there, you have a parish out there, and you have needy people in that community and parish, and we want you to concentrate on that group.
So my Knights Council, we don't really have any one particular thing that we're known for, other than we have one of the best fish fries west of the Mississippi River. But that's another story. But as far as our Knights Council, we tend to find a lot of, like, for example, our nights we do raffles for raising money to help build a church in Ghana, Africa. And then we also do Sunday coffee and donut every Sunday. We do breakfast and fish fries, but we also help a mission which we happen to have won. So we won 2 awards. My council, let's brag a little bit. We just got back from convention, and we won 2. My little council in Caldwell, Idaho, won 2 big awards for helping to build a church in Ghana, Africa, and then helping with a mission group called Vagabond Ministries, where we send one of our parishioners from Caldwell is actually over in Kansas City, Missouri, and he goes and deals with homeless teens or wayward teens, gang teens, and helps bring them to the faith, or just helps them with their life to help them straighten out their lives, and we help support him financially. So some of our goals, and we also help the pro-life. We're big on helping the pro-life. Knights are all known for that. But we have a group called Pregnancy Clinic that's called Stanton, and we help pay for the new bus they just put out in Ontario, Oregon, to be right across the street from Planned Parenthood. and then we do prayer vigils and things like that. So we're doing these things. But then there's another Knights organization out in Nampa. They really kind of have an emphasis on gathering and collecting donated medical equipment. They refurbish it, fix it back up, and then they lend it out. So Knights councils tend to be whatever kind of their hot button is, or whatever they feel their need is, and they want to fulfill that. So no one has a direction saying you have to do these things. There's always opportunities to do more. They have suggestions, but no one's mandated to run their council any specific way as far as the charities they support.
Oh, I think it's important to point out that Knights councils are fluid. That's the best word for it. People come, people go, they move, and new people come in, and their hot button is a different type of charity. Because of the pandemic, for example, a lot of councils started a program called Leave No Neighbor Behind. So that Leave No Neighbor Behind really emphasized getting out there and talking to people that were stuck in their house because of the pandemic. And we've gone, my council, to many senior citizens' home and helped them with different tasks around the home. And we also do, for another thing my council does is we have a telephone tree. We call people. How you doing? Just wanted to make sure you're okay. I think the point here is that's what my council wants to do. As Pat was saying, his council emphasizes other things. So it's not one size fits all in that respect.
But I will say that I know that this to be the fact with the color corps that they have and the 4th degree Knights and stuff, that we really do. We're kind of like the strong arm of the right hand of the pastors, because believe it or not, we don't have 9 pastors at every parish. Usually there's 2 or 1. And so a Knights council really helps fill in and whatever the pastor needs. If he needs security, or if he needs some help with some things around the church, or maybe a parishioner needs a ramp built. A lot of times, like for example, my church they had torn up some irrigation stuff around the pump and had a huge hole. And there was an event coming up, and they couldn't get a contractor to come in to repair the fence around that hole. Well, the hole was filled, but now all this equipment's exposed, and we got a bunch of kids coming, and they didn't want the kids to get hurt. So they couldn't get a contractor to come out in time to do this. So they called us up, and you know what? I think it was like within 2 days, we had a bunch of guys, 6-7 guys on a Saturday morning, 6 a.m. out there digging holes and putting fence posts back in concrete. Now, it was done in fast, and we're all volunteers. It wasn't like some professional contract, but it's pretty daggone good, and it worked, and it kept the kids out of something that could hurt them. So,
well, I think there's probably a professional contractor in the Knights.
Oh, there is.
We'd ask him to oversee it. But the point, Pat's making a really good point. We provide manpower to the pastor of a parish, and we help him accomplish things that he couldn't accomplish without our help, whether that be our physical help or whether or not that be financial aid.
So now you're a paid position, right?
Yeah. In fact, that's what my wife always
I say that in jest.
And you're being paid how much, she says? Yeah, no.
The biggest joke at some of our fish fries and thing is, hey, you can pay me twice next time.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay, good. So zero's it, right?
And the reply comes back is, you're worth every penny.
You're worth every penny you pay. Well, and so I think during Lenten fish fries, I have every week about 25 hours into just preparing the fish fry, cooking the fish fry, and then kind of running it. And let me tell you, when we first start the fish fries, I'm all excited and all giddy. But boy, by that last 6th final fish fry, I'm glad it's over. But 25 hours all volunteer.
I think that's really important what Pat's saying, to realize that each of us has certain skills. And it's important for you to take your skills, whatever they may be, and apply them to a certain position in the Knights,
right,
to help grow the Knights, to help more people, to help the community. That's the important thing. We don't tell you, hey, do this, do that. You volunteer for a position.
We'll ask.
We might ask.
We'll ask.
You
but
you have the right to say no.
That's right. It's all what you're called to do, what you feel comfortable in doing. I know how to cook. I've cooked all my life. So running a kitchen was like a no-brainer. It's no big deal. In fact, I actually enjoy it. So like I said, by the 6th one, I'm done and don't need to do that for a while. But there are some things that I know I just can't do. And I don't want to. I lead a rosary on Sunday morning, so I'm not out there greeting everybody that walks into the parish. And there are men that like to just greet everybody. There's guys that lead in ushering and do all sorts of things. And you know what? They've never asked me to do it. Because they know that
because they want people to go into church.
Well, okay, that's probably true.
Yeah, I mean, for example, a lot of our leaders that are cooks in my council got their training in the military.
Yeah.
Great training to be a cook because you got to get the food out there, you got to get it cooked correctly, and you got to serve X amount of people in X amount of time.
So we have one of our Harry. He's one of our knights that provides make sure he gets the donuts and stuff like that, and he's the greeter at the door. But he's a nurse. And so he helps out with the blood drives and things like that. And I tell you, I can't tell you how many people come up to him and will ask him because they know who he is and he's so warming and engaging that you ask him a medical question or something like that, he's more than willing to help you. So that's one of his strengths. And that because he's a knight, people get to know him and know who he is, and they feel comfortable coming up to him.
I think it's important right here, what we're talking about, is to point out that in the past, that may never have happened.
Right.
Talking to different type of knights with all these different work experiences. And that's what makes the knights such a great place. I never would have known how to bake cinnamon rolls in such a large quantity if I
you guys do what, 450 pans once a month as a fundraiser?
Good. It's a very good fundraiser for us. We always sell out. The parishioners have been, they learned to ensure they get theirs, that they come and buy them before Mass. So we actually
so they bring them back, they prepay or they bring them inside?
They prepay and they ask us to put it on a back table.
Good, because I could just see, I'd be too tempted to open that lid. It's like, ooh, that smells good.
Well, the other thing is that we've had a limit how many we can sell at a certain Mass so that everybody has an opportunity to participate. Right. But that's something that men come in starting on Friday for a couple of hours and open up to get everything ready. Other men come in on...
And I've seen this happen. These guys are efficient. They most volunteer guys, they don't want to just hang around and kick they're not on the time clock. So they know that they're taking time from their family or from other things they want to do. So they get in and get it done. That's the nice thing about volunteering, is that you want to get it over with.
Yeah, it's we all recognize the value to us of volunteering to help other people. But at the end of the day, I got to get home, and the wife wants me to do this for her. Go oversee my kids and grandkids. So full life.
Well, one of the things about the Knights, and COVID really put a big damper on a lot of church activities. And some states, some of them haven't even recovered yet. And we're fortunate here in Idaho that once the bishop kind of saw the writing and said, look, let's just open things back up and let's get going. And slowly, you can see the numbers increase. Slowly, the parishes are filling back up to full capacity. But the one thing that really got hurt was that community gathering, that community bonding. And then when we returned, so our Knights Council in the past would do a coffee and donut hour about once a month, once a quarter, just as a, feel good, let's do this, let's, and then, no big deal. But so what I found is that most, and trust me, I'm not saying this is this, my parish, the only one that does this. Every single parish is the same way across the country. Mass is over. They're in that parking lot and out of there 5 minutes because a football game's on or something else. I'll tell you, they want to get out of there in a hurry. So what we started doing was we did the coffee and donut hour, but instead of doing just once a month, once a quarter, we started doing it every week. And there are times when we can't because there's something going on that
Sure.
won't let us do it, like Cursillo or something else. And you look at there, when Mass is over and there's no coffee and donut, that narthex is empty. But when we do coffee and donut, it takes them 5 minutes to get a coffee and donut, but they hang around for 35, 40 minutes. And I see all these little micro communities forming and discussions going on. And I just sit back and going, over a coffee and a donut.
It's a really interesting point you bring up, because the numbers that I've heard for the churches, the parishes in Idaho, is more than a few have not gotten back to their pre-pandemic
That's right.
Population of people attending Mass. It's down. However, interestingly enough, the Knights of Columbus is growing at a faster and faster rate. Normally, we have a year that we have certain membership goals, and we make it usually in the last month. This year, we made it 5 months early.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're obviously providing something that men are looking for, a place to get together, a place to talk to other men, a place to be able to volunteer in.
Well, and I think the pandemic made people realize that they can't go to work. They're doing it remotely. I'm a landscaper, so I worked all the time. I didn't care. I wasn't gonna fire myself. I have to eat. Self-employed, you got to work. So I was out doing my thing every day, every week anyway. But because you weren't gathering at restaurants or bars or fraternal organizations or anything like that, there was that huge hole in men's lives. And I know that drug addictions went up, alcoholism went up, divorces went up, domestic issues went up, and the whole family crossed the country. And as soon as we could bring our Knights Councils back together, they were the ones that came back, and they're consistently coming back because men need other men.
Yeah.
Families need other families. And if you can't rely on your own church's family and men, then we're doing something wrong in the parish. But I tell you, there's a hunger for that community again. And the Knights are providing that. The Knights and the parishes. And if we work together with the parish, not only do we build up the Knights, but we build up the parish in the process.
Well, we complement the efforts of the parish because we're really one of the few ministries that allow men to live their faith. When you live your faith through action, you get so many benefits. And the Knights are one of the few organizations that provide you that opportunity. There's plenty of faith ministries at my parish, for example. Few ministries that allow you to, what I've said before, live your faith through action.
Well, isn't it true that we don't just let any man become a knight? They have to be a devout, practicing Catholic, and they also have to. Do we do background checks, or do we follow up to make sure that we
don't do?
What do we do to secure that they are good and decent men?
So, like anything, it's a little bit different in there. For a regular man wanting to become a regular member, we ask you about your Catholicity.
Okay.
The Catholicity has few minimum requirements, but we ask that you attend Mass regularly. We ask that you recognize the Pope as the leader of our church, and that you're over 18. That's the basics right there.
Pro-life, is it pro-life a big stand for the...
Well, that's part of our Catholicity,
okay.
Right?
Following the doctrines
of the church.
Of the church, okay.
Right. The next level is if you get into certain positions in the council, we do a background check on you. And this is really through our Office of Youth Protection. We want to make sure that you're trained so that you can recognize any potential problems that might be at one of our meetings at the parish or anything like that. By the way, this is required by the Diocese of Boise, and we work closely with them.
I think most dioceses are required this now, to the point where there's a special organization, I think it's called CMG, that tests. So when I taught confirmation. I had to take this safe environment test required by the by the Diocese of Boise. Every year I had to be retested and recertified, and they did an initial background, which is what I'm glad about. I had no problem because I want them to know that I'm someone that's been vetted, and their families can be sure that I'm going to provide protection for their children. They're going to be safe around me and others,
right?
Because you wouldn't want the problems you see out in the real world out there, the other world.
Right. The Grand Knight, for example, or the family director in the council, certain positions has to have take testing that's sponsored by the Knights of Columbus on this. It's lessons and then it's testing. It's all online. And then other positions have to take these lessons and the testing as well as a background check.
Right. Well, so the Knights of Columbus, I know that when I was a young boy, growing up in my parish, I know I had a misunderstanding, but I only knew what I knew. And I never wanted to become a knight because
Me too.
All I thought the knights were just a bunch of old guys. I mean, literally old guys sitting around playing cards, getting away from the family, playing cards, drinking beer, and then every now and then showed up in their pretty outfits and would lead in the bishop or the parish, midnight mass or Easter Sunday, and that was it. And that's all I knew of them. I never really saw them in the fullness of what they truly are, but I don't know if they didn't present themselves or I was just that ignorant.
No,
but
they were different. It's that simple. I never wanted to be a knight. In fact, up until I got to a certain point in my life and I realized how blessed I've been and my luck had to do with more about God's plan for me rather than
right.
My efforts. So I was at a stage where I thought it's time to give something back. And I looked around at the organizations that were available for me to give something back. And it looked like the Knights of Columbus resonated with me because I could do that with the time I had.
So I know you know this now because we've talked about it recently, but I had left the church in my mid-20s. All because I fell in love with a girl that wasn't Catholic, and the priest that was down there was very, let's just say, not compliant to the church's doctrines. And I liked him because he was cool, and I was single. He was cool. He was a Newman Center priest, and I liked him. But then I saw things as I got more involved in our youth group in there that I thought, this isn't right. But again, I'm a young, impressionable guy. And the old adage is, as California goes, so goes the rest of the country. And I thought, okay, Vatican II's out. This is where things going. I didn't really want this for my family and my life. So after spending time with him, with my future wife, we got to sit down, and they didn't have RCIA back then. And he was telling us about the church. And after 2.5 hours, I'm going, what he just said, I don't even recognize. And I was so upset that I said, I can't raise my family this way. This isn't something I want to believe in. So I left, and I became a non-denominational churchgoer for 25 years or so until my son passed away. Then my marriage broke up, and I was lost. And I said, God, where do you want me? And as I've said in past episodes, I hear my grandmother's voice succinctly say, I said a rosary for you today. And Immediately I thought I need to go back to the church. But once I got back to the church, I went to church and I went to communion. I found, wow, the church didn't change. It was me. It was the one that I was the one that was ignorant. But I became so full of energy and so full of the Holy Spirit returning to the faith that I wanted to do something. And I tried different things, and Father Flores says, you're so full of the Holy Spirit, I can't deal with you. So I started a men's group, and I started this. I've taught confirmation. I did all these things, but I really, really wanted to do something on such a more deeper, fulfilling level. And Darwin Schweitzer, I say this all the time, the only way I became a knight was because Darwin Schweitzer gagged me and dragged me. Sorry about that. I need to stop. See, I told you to do that. Darwin Schweitzer one day called me up and says, hey, you're going to become a knight. I said, no, I'm not. He said, yeah, you are. You're going to become a knight. I said, no, I'm not. And he knocks on the, well, I didn't, he knocks on the back door. He's on the phone. He's knocking on the back door. And I answer the door. He says, come on, you're going to become a knight. I said, I don't want to be one. Yes, you do. And he put me in this, I said, he gagged me and dragged me, put me in there, took me to a knight's meeting, and I became a first-degree knight that night. And, you know, after that first ceremonial meeting, now things have changed. We're not so secretive anymore. It's a little more open to the family and stuff. It's all open. I did like that original way they brought me in because I thought there was something more emphasized, that there was something deeply spiritual about it. But this is fine. The new transition will make it so we're not so secretive, because we really weren't. It was just a ceremony that, you know, made men feel more involved, more engaged, and special.
That's correct.
It right away. Then as soon as then I became a second and third degree, and it's like, wow, I found a place. And I know men are out there thinking, you're hearing that inner voice saying, you need to do more. You need to do more. A lot of times you don't know, you don't understand. God doesn't reach down and spot you a $20 bill when you need money. What he may do is open opportunities for you to make that extra money. Or you're sitting there going, I want to do more for the church. And then some brother knight, some guy from the parish comes up to you and says, hey, you'd make a great knight. Why don't you come to one of our meetings and let's find out a little bit more about it? And you're going like, oh, I don't want to be a knight. Well, then why'd you just ask God, what can I do to be more of service? If you're not going to ask God, if you're going to ask God a question, then when it comes to you, you don't take him up on it, then you're either lying to yourself or lying to God about what your intentions are. So when Darwin brought me to the Knights, I really was searching for something deeper, okay? But I didn't convince myself that it was the way to go. Because of my previous thoughts of what the Knights were. The greatest thing that ever happened was Darwin bringing me into the Knights.
Well, I think we all grow in different ways, but we all grow. And, you know, if you're a man that's questioning, trying to figure out the answers, you research, you find the growth areas, and you either buy into them or you don't. And I think our members realize there's a way to help them be a better man. And as I said before, better Catholic, better father, better husband. And the Knights, by I'm always going to say by osmosis, by being around other men who are like that.
You know, I learned to become a landscaper by osmosis through my grandfather. My grandfather didn't sit me on a bench and start saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. He just let me follow him. I was 12 years old, or 11, 12 years old. I followed him around one whole summer after my parents divorced and we moved up to Idaho from California. And he just let me follow around. And he just did. He did his daily duties, letting me follow around. And through osmosis, through his kindness, through his pointing out a little bit of here, a little bit of there, I learned how, here this big man. Now, to me, he was 90 years old, okay, and big. He was a big German guy. But he wasn't. I don't even know how old he was at that time. But to me, he was an older man, very wise, very strong, very quiet, which I wasn't. But he just tolerated me. He loved me enough to just show by example, lead by example. And he let his little grandson run around behind him all day long, pestering him. What's this? What's that? And he just showed me. And that showed me his love for what he did. His passion exuded out of his body. And that example is what I fell in love with. And I spent 40 years of my life doing, all because of one summer at my grandfather's house.
Sure.
And that's the way the Knights have come to me, is that they didn't just sit there and this is a knight, this is how you have to perform, this is how you have to do. No, they just showed me their kindness and their manliness, their mentorship, their overall. Why are you doing that? Oh, because I'm called to, or I want to, or I enjoy this, or you work all day. Yeah, but this is more fun. You know, men just stepping out and leading. They don't, hey, you don't want to do something, you don't do it. You know, no one's made me do it other than Darwin.
Volunteers vote with their feet.
That's right. So we can talk about this all we want, and I'm not trying to browbeat your brain. I'm trying to realize that if some man approaches you and says, "Hey, would you like to be a knight? You'd be a great knight. We need men like you, young men. We need men that care about their families. You're the best person. Yeah, I've got a family. I've got a job. I got this. You're the best person to become a knight because you know what's important to you, and all the knights are going to do is help you." They're going to be a part of your life and help you in ways that you can't imagine what you're doing on your own. Now you've got 25 men in your back pocket.
Let me add on to one thing there. When you go join the Knights of Columbus and you have a family, your kids are watching you.
That's right.
If you have an idea of the man you want your kids to be, they need a role model. And the father is that role model. And if they see you participating in church, if they see you joining the Knights of Columbus, if they see you doing charitable acts for others, they'll remember that and would be more inclined to follow in your footsteps. So if you're young, perfect age for you to bring your family into the Knights.
Right. And we'll actually end on that note. And I hope you like. Hopefully, I'm getting better at doing these podcasts. I'm a work in progress, also. And so, but I do want to thank my buddy, my good friend Dave Fortin out in Connecticut, a brother knight. He's also a podcaster. He's got his own show. Along the way into the, I'll have to get written down so I have his script, and I'll mention it next time. But Dave Fortin helped me he's the voice on the intro and the outro. Eddie Trask did my graphics, and Salt and Light is the producer. Trinity Baines is the producer of the show, the content. She helps me put this all together and even smirks and laughs over there from time to time when I say something stupid, and she's going, I got to cut that out. Anyway, she does a great job for me. She puts up with me. I am a handful. My mom told me that from the time I was born, so I get it. I understand, but I can't help what I am. But we will end with the St. Michael's prayer as usual, and but thanks for listening and watching. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Man Cave, a weekly podcast discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. A production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. To learn more about our ministry, please visit our website, saltandlightradio.com.